Hello. Hi everyone, I'm Yang Zian. If I had to sum up the MPV market over the past 2 years in one word, it would definitely be competitive. Also, I've noticed lately that these car companies really like to use alcohol-related names for their MPVs. For example, the Xpeng X9, the Denza D9, and the Zeekr 09. All of these models are doing exceptionally well in their respective segments, and the car we're bringing you today is also named after alcohol. The Forthing Xinghai V9 is not only a very popular plug-in hybrid model right now, but it's also a true champion of competitiveness. The first way it stands out is with its size. The car is over 5.2 meters long. The second is its price, starting at just 199,900 yuan. And to really showcase the advantages this newcomer brings to the table, just how competitive is it? We've also brought in a heavyweight MPV model from a few years ago that was a major player in the market. The official price of the Toyota Sienna Premium Edition is nearly 100,000 yuan higher than this one. When the former industry benchmark meets today's price champion, let's see what kind of sparks will fly between the two. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at the exterior of these two cars. First, let's talk about the current trend of Chinese-style elements. It's extremely popular right now. That's why many of our domestic brands incorporate so-called national elements into their car designs. For example, the Xinghai V9 has a front grille design reminiscent of a Chinese knot, and below that there are rows of tassel-like decorations which really fit our traditional aesthetic. If you find this version of the front face a bit too complex, there's also the Qingyuan T version of the front face, which looks a bit simpler and has a stronger sense of design tension. As for the Sienna, its overall shape hasn't changed much over the years. At most, they've just tweaked the materials or colors a little, but it still sticks to Toyota's family-style design. It's the kind of look you never get tired of, but honestly, there's nothing particularly outstanding about it. Getting into the back row of the Sienna, my first impression is that it feels very familiar because my family also has a Sienna for family trips. So when I see the interior of this car, wow, it feels like I'm back in our own car again. Of course, back then I picked up the base model from Tianjin Port, so now I'm curious to see what features this premium version has. First of all, oh, this part is still hard plastic. Sorry, even in the mid to high trim levels, it's just hard plastic here. So whether you look at the interior materials or actually touch them, they really have nothing to do with the word premium. As for the rear seats, there's not much to highlight. It does have a leg rest, but the size of the leg rest is a bit on the small side. However, there is one feature that I quite like. It's this kind of armrest that's similar to a yacht seat. And then there's this small table in the middle, which you could also see on the previous generation Odyssey. But to be honest, aside from some basic storage, there's really nothing high-tech about it. It definitely looks quite dated. However, I did notice that in the air conditioning panel, the second row seats have both ventilation and heating, which is a significant upgrade compared to my own model. In Toyota cars, seat ventilation is already considered a high-tech feature. Now that we're in the rear seats of the Xinghai V9, you'll notice that its latecomer advantage is extremely obvious. From a visual perspective, if you take a 360-degree look around this car, you'll notice all kinds of materials, like the soft leather, the wood grain style trim panels, and even this brushed aluminum finish. All of these give you the impression that this car feels several generations newer than the Sienna. This is exactly the advantage of our latest domestic brand vehicles. And when it comes to functional features, this car doesn't lack anything at all. It comes with 2 full-size aviation seats in the middle row, saving you the trouble of having to retrofit them later. One downside of retrofitting aviation seats is that, over time, they don't match the rest of the car as seamlessly as the original factory seats do. This can lead to things like strange noises or even functional issues, which can be really annoying. For example, I'm a long-term MPV user. Previously, my family had a GL8, and we upgraded it with aviation seats as well as things like ceiling lights and wooden flooring. But over time, the amount of strange noises coming from the whole car increased significantly. But with this car, everything is already fully equipped straight from the factory. Plus, these aviation seats come with really high-end features, especially when it comes to comfort features like massage, heating, and ventilation. The massage function even has several levels and different massage modes to choose from, which I really like. And aside from the aviation seats, if we look a bit further forward, there are small tables on both the left and right sides. For an MPV that needs to accommodate both business and family travel in all kinds of scenarios, these small features are extremely practical. And further down here, there's also a 220-volt power outlet. You see, MPVs are mainly used in two scenarios. One is for family trips, when you need to bring the kids along. The second is for business travel, when you need to pick up clients or executives, and having power is extremely important. For example, when a mom is taking care of the kids, she might need to warm up some milk or boil some water. Having electricity makes all of that no problem. Or for instance, if you're working here, your laptop might need a 220-volt outlet to charge. That way, it's convenient for you to discuss those big projects worth a few million. As for the seats, to meet the needs of all these different travel scenarios, the space inside is extremely flexible and versatile. For example, not only can these seats move forward and backward as usual, but they can also move side to side. For example, when you're taking care of your child, you can move the two seats close together. Mom sits here, the child sits here, making it very convenient to look after your little one. But when you're on a business trip, if the seats are this close together and your arm brushes against your clients, doesn't that feel a bit ambiguous? So at this point, you can move the seats to the outermost positions, giving both people an appropriate amount of personal space, which makes it easier to maintain a polite and reasonable distance during conversations. This is a really thoughtful feature. When it comes to caring for the front row driver, some MPVs actually fall short in this area. For example, as a driver, I bought the car and I have to drive it. But if most of the comfort features are only provided for the two rear seats, I can't help but feel a little disappointed. Even though my wife and kids are in the back and I want them to be comfortable, I also don't want to feel like I'm being left out or treated poorly. This car, for instance, gets it right, your driver's seat. The comfort features and the two rear aviation seats are actually equally equipped. Seat heating, ventilation, and massage functions are available for both the driver and front passenger seats. The front passenger's queen seat offers many preset modes, such as comfort, travel, movie watching, and stargazing modes. If you choose the stargazing mode, the seat will recline for you, the sunshade above will open, and you can look at the stars. It sounds pretty nice. Moreover, this seat supports 10-way electric adjustment, and the down-filled headrest in the back is also quite comfortable. Once you sit inside the Sienna, first of all, things like the front passenger entertainment screen or the queen seat are out of the question. After all, they're not products of the same era, and this is a mild hybrid developed with a focus on traditional fuel vehicles. Then, the central instrument cluster has also become something like a semi-digital display. The LCD screen in the middle is very small, just a tiny one like this, so it really can't be called high-tech. However, the basic comfort features are still there. For example, seat ventilation and heating are included here, which at least meet the most basic usage needs. Although the gear lever in the middle isn't an electronic shifter, Toyota has provided a very large storage space underneath it, which is actually quite reasonable. You could even fit, by the looks of it, 2 pairs of shoes in here. Since we're already talking about space, we definitely have to take a look at the trunk. We've already compared the first and second rows, so of course we can't miss out on the trunk space. Plus, both of them use the sunken design that you all really like. So let's not beat around the bush, we'll just use a tape measure and get their exact dimension. According to our measurements, the Sienna's trunk space is 123 centimeters long, 62 centimeters wide, and 123 centimeters high. The Xinghai V9's trunk space measures 125 centimeters in length, 63 centimeters in width, and 130 centimeters in height. Based on our measurements, the Xinghai V9's trunk is slightly larger than the Sienna's in every aspect. Also, it's worth noting that the trunk is clearly designed to be more regular in shape, which makes it more practical when loading large items. Finally, at the end of the video, let me give you a brief static summary. We've had both of these cars for about a week now and have thoroughly tested all their features. Overall, let's start with the Sienna. Since it's a model developed specifically for the North American market, its main focus here is on expanding trunk space, including the sunken seats you see. Of course, the Xinghai V9 also uses the same design, but you can still clearly tell that this is an MPV designed from the perspective of a traditional fuel vehicle. However, when it comes to the Xinghai V9, you can clearly feel that it's been developed with research tailored to our domestic market, and the product from our own domestic brands better suits the preferences of Chinese consumers. For example, in our country, the average time people spend using their phones is very long, so in this car, even the cup holders in the third row are equipped with USB charging ports. Can you believe that? And then, when it comes to seat comfort, and the overall visual sense of luxury in the interior materials, this car is indeed much better than the Sienna. You can clearly feel that the latecomer advantage of our domestic brands is becoming more and more apparent. So in the next episode, we'll take both of these cars out for a drive to see whether the Xinghai V9 is just about looks or if it truly has substance.